Welcome, everybody. Good afternoon, good morning, wherever you are. Today we have Mike Bott with us from Hammerspace. Welcome, Mike.
Thanks for having me, Roy.
You bet. I want to read one statement from Hammerspace's website. I love this statement. One day data will become a live, globally shared resource, no longer localized, existing solely trapped within a specific storage system or specific cloud data services. I love that statement. Mike, please tell us a little bit more about Hammerspace.
Love it too. Yeah, that vision is a big part of the reason I came over here. I've been in storage for a long time, and we're very used to the whole storage system has a embedded file system, and we distribute our data across multiple storage systems, and we use data management and data orchestration tools to move data between all of those systems. And at Hammerspace, we're inverting the relationship between the file system and the storage system. We provide a file system that can encompass many storage systems that can distribute data across them, even on a file-by-file basis for what is appropriate data to sit on an appropriate storage system. And then data management and data orchestration becomes a property of that file system. So demand can cause data to move to a different site versus having to deal with traditional tools like replication or stub-based data management.
Very interesting. Okay. How can Hammerspace help someone with an existing storage solution in a media environment?
So that's pretty much what we walk into. We walk in and they say, I've got this storage solution. Our environment is growing. It may not be the right thing. It may be a little bit too expensive for the bunch of fallow data that's sitting on it that doesn't get accessed. But what we can do is come in, and the first thing we do is assimilate the data. And as a longtime storage professional who has done tons of storage migrations, this is another thing that attracted me to Hammerspace, because moving into Hammerspace doesn't require moving your data off of that existing storage system. We can simply read the metadata off of that storage system and bring that into our file system, present it to the environment of users and applications, and now we control the presentation. And we've done that without having to move data. This could be petabytes of data that we just assimilate. You know, if you think about the difference between reading all that data versus reading all the metadata that represents it, the latter is a much easier job to do. It takes a lot less time.
Sure.
And so we can read that metadata, bring it into our file system, and then provide a file system while we move data around on the back end. So one big example, and we can also do some other things once we're in there. So this is a big example that we just got through, where we were coming into an existing scale out from a major vendor that is well known in this industry. The customer was having trouble expanding their render farm. They were running up against the ceiling against their existing storage solution. You know, admittedly, it was a little bit older cluster of scale out NAS, but we were able to come in, assimilate that data, provide it to their compute environment, which way they were then able to over double in size for two reasons. One of them is that we offloaded metadata transactions from that older storage system. So we made the workload a little bit easier that way. And the second is that we were able to take advantage of the caching behavior of that scale out system. When you are in Hammerspace, we can actually route requests on a per request basis instead of the mount time basis that a lot of these scale out systems use. And so subsequent requests for the same file can be sent to the same node where that data is already cached in L1 cache. And so as a result, you cut way back on the crosstalk that the scale out system needs to go through, where nodes are constantly requesting file extents from other nodes. We were able to build that L1 cache up for a file and then send all of the subsequent requests to that node. So if a node is requesting access to multiple files, it might be sent to different nodes for each of those files. But the net efficiency win was so big, they could double their render farm in size.
Ooh, wow. And excellent. And the cloud for customers who want to use the cloud. How do you help there?
So we help quite a bit there. Because we can present a file system in multiple locations, to us, the cloud is just another site. So if you're in AWS, if you're in Google, if you're in Azure, we are able to spin up Hammerspace clusters in those environments and expose a file system that is the same file system that they have on-prem. So as an example, if someone wants to burst to the cloud and either bring in virtual workstations with some remote talent, or they want to take advantage of elastic compute to kind of get around a case where their entire on-prem infrastructure is busy, they can spin us up, connect us to a global file system. We can present a file system for data that exists on-prem, and then transfer data on demand as the render job or as the users request data. So we aren't causing you to have to replicate all of your giant petabyte, multi-petabyte footprint into the cloud where it's costing you money per gigabyte. We can expose a sparse file system, and only the data that's useful in that workflow to the user or to the render job is going to get transferred into that cloud environment. So that's another example of a big efficiency win using a file system that works this way, that can present itself in multiple locations and transfer data on demand.
Yeah. And also empowering globally or geographically dispersed workflows, right?
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
We have cases where we have a case where a customer in London has a very large data repository, and they regularly render in Azure regions that are in the United States because the instances are less expensive. And they can also reach talent in India and South Africa remotely by setting up a Hammerspace close by and then setting up a remote workstation that that talent can connect to.
Oh, amazing, amazing. And to ask specifically about one product that we work with, Flame, could you speak a bit of Hammerspace's approach to Flame workflows?
Yes, absolutely. And in fact, I got to give Autodesk and AWS a lot of credit here. They really blazed the trail for us and were helping us at NAB last year, doing demos of a bi-coastal Flame workflow where a Flame artist on the West Coast could make changes, and on the East Coast, they could immediately see those new versions of that particular shot in the sequence. They could see new versions and import them easily, without having to package up a bunch of stuff with a manifest and transfer the data. It was the same file system being exposed in both locations. And again, it doesn't matter whether it's Flame in the cloud or Flame on-prem. We're able to expose that data set to a Flame workstation regardless of where it is. So that kind of project sharing between sites enables really fast collaborative turnaround, and it reduces the pipeline complexity, because the file system becomes responsible for transferring that data back and forth, exposing the changed metadata to the other site so the application can see it.
God, man, Mike, you've spoken with eloquence and enthusiasm on so many like powerful solutions. Anything else we haven't covered that you'd like to mention?
Just that, I mean, Hammerspace is more of a platform than this product or point solution, right? There's a lot of different problems that can solve, and we like to talk about in terms of the full dynamic range of NAS functionality. We can do, on one end of the spectrum, there is this hyperscale NAS, and again, this is the same product across this whole spectrum, but we've recently launched hyperscale NAS, and we've demonstrated like a dozen terabytes a second of performance into a very large scaled out storage environment, using Hammerspace to route those requests and to do data orchestration either for performance or data protection reasons. On the other end of the spectrum, you've got all of that enterprise NAS functionality. You've got snapshots and versioning and very granular replication, and proper authentication and identification and permissions all built into the system as well. And that's the same system. So all the data orchestration stuff that I discussed can also be done on one of these large hyperscale NAS systems that we've been talking with many about.
Wonderful. All right. Well, Mike, we appreciate having Hammerspace as a partner. We appreciate working with you. For anyone watching, any of the applications Mike has discussed, I know will be of interest to you. Please contact us at CineSys. We will involve and work with Hammerspace to provide solutions. Mike, thank you again so much.
Yeah, thanks for the time, Roy.
All
Been a
right.
pleasure.
Yeah.